G'day everybody. Now my wife works shift work, which means consequently, quite often, I'm left alone without adult supervision and a PayPal account. So look what turned up. Welcome to Basket Case. Okay, so we want to bust this bank apart to replace the number 2 carburetor with this body. As I alluded to in an earlier video, we have a broken post, and I ran through on a method to repair that using a brass metal thread. However, I'm not going to use that carb because it's not the number 2 carb, and the number 2 carb is special because it has a vacuum advance pipework on it. Now I stated in the earlier video that I wasn't going to soda blast it, but I did, and it does work very well. It gives you a good clean finish, gets rid of all that petrol staining, etc., that you can see in the front of these. But anyway, let's get on with it. We're going to break the bank apart. Now I've already removed the fuel lines. The vacuum lines, the vent lines are still attached, but one of the first things we need to do is remove our choke mechanism. Now the choke, there's a couple of carburetors here, one on either end, that has a little hole in there. Not sure whether or not you can see that, right there, and also there. Now one of, or both of those, will house a detent, which is a little ball and spring, and you've got to be very careful that that doesn't go flying across the workshop. I can't remember which one it is, whether it's both. So we'll err on the side of caution, presume it's both. Right, so the first thing I want to do is undo all of these screws that actually actuate the choke. Now I'm going to remove the screws that hold the lever in place. Very carefully, I'll just put I might just take this idle screw out. Put my finger over. Yes, and the ball is in there. Going to get a little magnet, and there he is, and there's also, there it is, magnet. Right, that guy off. That one off. Yes, there is. Ball. And spring. So, next thing to do would be to separate them. But before I go ahead and do that, I just want to show you a little trick. This is an automatic pin punch, and it is designed, or center pop. It is designed to put a pop pre-drilling. So if you press down on that, it has a hammer action, and it leaves a little pop ready to start your drill. You can use it to get these pins out in situ. Pop. Look at that. How good's that? one of my subscribers told me that little trick, so thank you very much for that. I just wanted to show you that before we went ahead and split it all. A bit stubborn. Gentle, gentle, please, please. Right. Really good. So now if I wanted to service my needle and seats, I could do it in here. And I'm going to replace them with brand newies, and before we do that, we're going to replace this carburetor. So while they're all still lined up and bolted together, I'll just remove the bits I want to remove on this one. It's easier to hold. Washer and cap. Main jet. Pilot jet. Alright, I can now put them in the vise, and well, I might even try and do it on the bench here. See if we can't get these. Oh, get a big screwdriver. I'm going to put it in the vise. They are proving to be stubborn. Did anyone else pick up on the fact that I removed the jets from the wrong carburetor? Yeah, well, thanks for telling me. Let's put these others back. I'm going to end up stripping that screw. I'm going to put a bit of heat on it. Hallelujah. Right, the rail is removed. Okay, the reason they were so tight is that someone had put some red Loctite in each of those screws. So heating it up was definitely the way to go. But what I've done now is I've run a 6mm tap down all of those holes to clear the Loctite out. So now all we have to do is pop off these plates on top, and we should be able to separate these carburetors. So this is the bracket that holds the accelerator linkage. When you have multiple carburetors, there's always a lead carburetor, a master carburetor, and in the case of the XS1100, it's carburetor number 3. So carburetor number 3 is directly pulled by the throttle cable, and all of the others are attached to it and need to be adjusted to number 3, and we'll run through that when we set them back up again. You can see there I can now actually separate the banks. So number 3 carburetor, as I mentioned, is directly pulled by the cable, and all of the others are joined to it, either from this side going that way to 1 and 2, or this spring here to 4. And I can actually separate that now. There we go. Okay, they're ready to go back together. I'll just run you through the differences. This is the carb number 3. It is the master carburetor and has the accelerator linkage attached to it. carburetor number 2 has the vacuum advance, and 1 and 4, basically what we've got here is 2 sets of 2 carburetors. So these 2 plumb together and these 2 plumb together. Each side of the butterfly shaft is connected to the adjacent carburetor and clamped between these set of springs here, and that's where we make our adjustments. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some a little bit of rubber grease on these O-rings, and we'll fit these T's and throw the bank back together. That's that 2. And that's the 4. Okay, so I might just pop this rail on now. Okay. Righto, we're ready to reassemble the choke slide. So we just checked, actually you should check this before you reassemble the carbs. Just make sure that all those chokes slide freely, because if you have to deal with an issue, the carburetors need to be separated to get the slide out. It extends too far, unless of course it's the very end one, carburetor number 1. Alright, so we'll take our slide and we'll just thread it through first to make sure that everything moves freely, and it does. And of course we have a detent and spring for the first carburetor, so we'll pop a little spring down in there, followed by a ball. Okay. Slide it up until the drillings in the shaft line up with the choke actuators, and tighten it up. Okay, now we can put the choke mechanism on the end. Okay. So now we can test that it all works. It's half choke and that's full choke. Lovely. Alright, now we'll get to the job that we're here to do. Replace these needles and seats. Alright, I've already replaced the seat and needle in number 2, in the one that was damaged. This job in itself is not particularly difficult. 10mm socket or spanner. It's the old one. We'll just recover this little strainer because the new ones don't come with it. Just make sure it's clear. Held it up to the light and the screen looks clear. Put the little screen on. New washer. Keep him down firm. Needle in. Let's do that to the others. Okay, floats. Okay, we now need to do a preliminary float height adjustment. Just let them sit there in that rest position, laying on the needle valves, and we measure a height of 25.7 millimeters plus or minus 1 millimeter from this face here, where the gasket sits on the carburetor, to the very top of the float. So I set my vernier caliper to 25.7. Rest is on there, and eyeball it. Ah, yeah, it's pretty good. That's all right. This one's a little high, or low, as the case may be. So what we need to do is just bend this tang ever so slightly. That's better. Yep, that's better. Oh, this one's radically high. Well, it's actually low. Still a bit. That's good. That's good. That one's a bit out as well, which surprises me because unless I mix the floats up, because I did have these set. I expected number 2 to be out. I didn't expect the others. And that's too low. Right, we are now within tolerance. So they're all the right measured height. Doesn't mean they're right, just that they're all measured at the right height. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll pop the bowls on, and we'll do a water level check with a plastic hose. But before we do that, we might set these butterflies. So we'll bench tune it essentially. So I'll go ahead now and I'll do that. I'll chuck the bowls on and we'll set it up. Okay, so the object of this exercise is to get all of these carburetors synchronized. So we want them to all open at exactly the same time. Now, as I've stated a couple of times in this video, carburetor number 3, which is this one, this is carburetor 1, 2, 3, 4. Carburetor 3 is the master carburetor. So the cable pulls it directly. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. I like to use a guitar string. This is a lower E string off my acoustic guitar. And I think the best method to do this is to slip that in behind the butterfly and close the butterfly down. Then I adjust the idle screw at the back, the one that moves all of them. Just adjust that up till I just get a little bit of feel. There it is. It's just starting to grab the wire now. Then I need to synchronize number 4 to number 3. So I'll just use a screwdriver. That's this guy here that we need to adjust. First of all, we need to get it in behind there. And it is just a little bit loose, so I'm just going to right. It feels about the same amount of resistance as I can feel on this one. Lovely. Then we come to number 2. Number 2 is way off the money. Right. That's about right. And number 4 is miles away. Number 1, I mean. We just wind him down. Right. Number 2 might have been a little bit tight. So I'll just so number 1 and 2 are together. Number 3 and number 4 are together. So this one adjusts 4 to 3, this one adjusts 1 to 2, and this one adjusts 1 and 2 to 3 and 4. So we are now bench tuned. So when I get the bike started, I'll be using a manometer, vacuum gauges on each of the carburetors on the intake manifold, and we'll be adjusting these to balance the carburetors as per vacuum, because there's going to be some discrepancies in, there might be some more wear inside one carburetor than another. There may be some drawing of loss of vacuum across the butterfly seals, etc. So you do need to adjust them on the bike, but that is bench tuning. Now the other way you can do it, if you don't have a guitar string, I prefer to do it right down close to nearly shut like that. That's why I like this nice thin wire. And you don't want to use wire that's soft and like tie wire that the butterfly can actually dent, because you put a dent in it and of course you're getting a false reading. You can use something like a drill bit, where you place a drill bit in the center there, and then you have the exact same drill bit, same size, and you go around and use that as a feeler gauge. Okay, so the carburetors, we've replaced the needles and seats, replaced those two T's, replaced number 2 carburetor that was damaged. We set the float levels in the vise using the vernier calipers, and we have now bench tuned them. So the last job on this list was to check the float levels using a water level type device. So I'm going to rig it up now and we'll do Righto. So what I've done is I've leveled the carburetors in the vise. So that's very important. And I've fitted my tube to the bottom of number 1 at this stage, and jury rigged a motorcycle fuel tank with some fuel in it that I borrowed from my friend Matt. Thank you, Matt. Now this is likely to leak, but I'm not overly concerned. I've also got a bucket here to catch fuel in should I spill it. So I'll set this camera up now and we'll go through it. Okay, I've turned the fuel tap on. You can see now the petrol is coming down the tube and flooding into the bowl. And like a water level, it will find its own level. Still climbing. Right, that looks to have stopped. So what we're looking for here is a measurement of 3 millimeters from the bottom of the bowl to the fuel, plus or minus 1 millimeter. And that is bang on. So I'll turn that off, drain the bowl, remove the hose, replace the bung, and there's no fuel leaking from around those T-pieces either, which is a good thing. Now because these two are tied together, there's going to be fuel in number 2, so we need to remove this with caution. Three millimeters. Tell you what, we're good, aren't we? We are red hot. So if they were wrong, if the level was too high or too low, I would have had to pop the bowl off and make some adjustments, but that looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with that. Now I'll put them back on the bike. Let's put a little bit of rubber grease. Okay, we are in like Flynn. Just tighten up the carburetor clamps. Wasn't quite on this side, that's okay. So I'll now so all that's left to do now is connect the vacuum hose for the vacuum advance, and that's it, the carburetors are back on the bike. So everything's back on. I'm happy with the carburetors now, they're bench tuned, ready to go. I've got the plugs back on, tapper cover back on, coils plumbed up. Fuel hoses sitting there. I'm just going to let the fuel tank cure for one more day, only because that's what the manufacturer recommended, a week, so I'm going to leave it for a week. And then tomorrow we might see if we can't fire it up. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Getting to an exciting milestone. So stay tuned, subscribe. We'll be back with more. Bye for now from Basket Case. It's going to be very hard for you to see, I think. You can see it's quite heavier in the bottom of the tank than it is elsewhere.